Hi, welcome to another How to Be a Person Life Skills for Young Adults. Last month we went into the kitchen and learned some kitchen basics. This month, because it's the holiday, let's go back into the kitchen and do some baking. Now baking is quite the science, and so the only thing I can tell you about baking is to follow your recipe and don't deviate away from it. You will need the precise measurements in order to have the perfect cookie. We are making chocolate chip cookies, and we are going to elevate it and make it a little bit more grown up by adding a savory component, which is crushed chocolate chips on top. If you don't like the sweet savory combination, leave the potato chips off and just make this wonderful chocolate chip recipe with me. Let's get started. To begin, you want to start your bake at 350 degrees, and you want your oven shelves to be in the middle of the oven. Baking requires precision because it is a science. So when you are filling up a cup for our flour for the cookies, you want to make it overflowing a bit, then take a knife and smooth it out, and then take the back side of your knife and slide it along, and that will give you the perfect cup of flour. When baking, again, precision is everything, and you will notice with this baking soda that it already has a lip that is built in so that you can get a precise measurement. You're gonna take your measuring spoon, make sure it's overflowing, and then rub it along the edge of that lip, and that gives you a precise amount of baking soda. Use parchment paper to line your baking sheet. That's what I prefer. If you don't have parchment paper, then you can use some spray-on cooking spray to give yourself a slick surface on your baking sheet. Putting all of our dry ingredients into one bowl. So far I have 1 cup flour. I'm going to use our method I've shown you to get the precision of a cup. So I have 1.5 cups of flour in my sifter. The recipe also calls for 1 teaspoon of baking soda. So as I showed you before, I'm going to use that precise method to get my 1 teaspoon of baking soda. And the recipe also calls for 1/2 teaspoon of salt. One thing I always recommend is don't measure your salt out on top of your dry ingredients, because if you spill your salt, you're gonna have to start over because there's no way you'll get that salt back out again. So I'm just gonna do my 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and I just kind of shook it to get it all nice and even. So I'm putting all my dry ingredients together, and then it asks for you to sift. So if you have one of these strainers, you can do this. You might have one of the strainers that have a little handle to sift, but there we go. We have all our dry ingredients sifted into a bowl. We're gonna set that off to the side. Now that we have our dry ingredients separated into their own bowl, we're gonna do our wet ingredients. First of all, we are going to cream our butters and sugars together. So you'll need an electric mixer, an electric hand mixer. If you don't have that, you can also do it by hand, but it'll go faster with an electric mixer. So one thing we're gonna add is the brown sugar. It's 1/2 cup of firmly packed brown sugar. And what that means is you're going to pack it in nice and tight. Add that to the bowl. It also asks for 6 tablespoons of sugar, granulated sugar, which is just your basic white sugar. So I'm going to put 6 of those, and again, just kind of give it a shake. So we're gonna put 6 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And then you're going to add the butter. What you do is you want room temperature butter. That will work best. You don't want to melt it in the microwave. You want to have this butter sitting out, and it's 1/2 cup. And the great thing about butters is, if you can see on the outside, they give you the measurements, and 1 stick of butter equals a half cup. So This recipe calls for 1/2 cup, so we're just gonna put 1 stick of butter inside that has been sitting out in room temperature. So it's soft, but not melty. And then you cream that together until everything is smooth and mixed. Our sugar and butter are mixed well together, so we're gonna add the next 2 wet ingredients, which is the vanilla and the egg. Add the vanilla, 1 teaspoon at a slow speed. And also, we're going to use our egg. What I do is I just crack it along the side, open it up, and put it in. If you're not confident with your egg, you can definitely crack it into a bowl and make sure that you don't get any shells. Then pick out the shells if you do, and then put it into the bowl. And now let this mix until it's all completely mixed together. Once everything's mixed together, you're slowly gonna add your dry ingredients. You don't wanna overmix, so once these ingredients are incorporated together, you wanna stop. You don't wanna overmix your cookies. If you see that your dough is going up on the side and not mixing, stop your mixer, lift it up, and then take a rubber spatula and push down the sides again. And as you can see, our dough is starting to mix together. All right, so let's let this mix just a little bit longer. See, our batter is slightly crumbly, but it's not super loose. It almost is consistent like a Play-Doh. And at this point, we're gonna add our chocolate chips. We're not gonna overstir it again, just add them and slowly fold in the chocolate chips. That your chocolate chips are evenly dispersed into your dough, it's time to put them on the cookie sheet. Cookies to my cooking sheet. I usually like to use a small little ice cream scooper. If you don't have one of these, you can also just use a big spoon. You're gonna want these about an inch like ball, like so. And you're gonna put it down on your cookie sheet. And then you want to have some extra space. So when you put them down, have about 1 to 2 inches between the cookies. So as they bake, they spread out and they won't run into each other. And once we get to this point, we get to add our extra little fun topping to elevate our chocolate chip cookies. And that is our crumbled up potato chips. So just put a little bit of those up on the top of your cookie. You can push it down a bit so that it can add. And there you go. Next step, put it into the oven and bake these cookies for about 10 to 13 minutes. Put the timer on the lower end and then check it. If they still don't look like they're ready, you can then add time at that point. Let's take them over to the oven. For the top of your cookies, you're gonna place your chips inside of a resealable bag and you're going to whack them with a solid heavy metal surface spoon or whatever you can find in the kitchen. Just like this. And this will make your chip crumbles for the top of your cookies. So I've taken our cookies out of the oven and I wanted to make sure that you see that around the edges there's a light brown. You don't want to go any darker than that or you're going to end up with hard and crunchy cookies. I let these sit on the tray for about a minute and then I will transfer them to a place to cool down. I have wired racks, but if you just have paper towels, that will work as well. This recipe is wonderful. The cookies are soft, yet a bit crispy. And the potato chip on top really packs a punch. I hope you enjoyed this segment of How to Be a Person, Life Skills for the Young Adult, Baking in the Kitchen. Join us again next month. Bye.